We're going to see a lot of whining from left-wing critics of the president about the fourth quarter. President Trump wants to help fix the problem, fill the hole that Joe Biden created.
So you're talking about what, 1% growth in the fourth quarter? How would you assess what the...
I want to hop into a few clips of Kevin Hassett on Fox News as he joins the Bad Economy Coke Tour and, the Please Blame Biden Avengers. So if you can, leave us a like on the video. It helps us out a ton. We want to get to 30,000, and let's just hop right into the content.
We're going to see a lot of whining from left-wing critics of the president about the fourth quarter because our estimate is that the shutdown cost more than we expected at the beginning because it had such a huge effect on this week ahead. So many people had to cancel their Thanksgiving plans because of the Democrat shutdown that we think the economic effect might be to cut economic growth about in half for the fourth quarter.
So you're talking about what, 1% growth in the fourth quarter? How would you assess what the...
I would say 1.5 or 2, yeah.
Which, to put it frankly, is dog shit. 1.5 economic growth would be abysmal, especially considering one of our other quarters this year, we had negative economic growth under Trump, which is why, again, they're preempting this with, well, the Democrats actually did this with their shutdown. Guys, we had numerous months of manufacturing job loss prior to the shutdown, rising unemployment, dropping consumer spending, abysmal job numbers, under 100K jobs in a month created at times, right? Barely over that at others. In September, we had 119, and rising inflation, all prior to the shutdown. All of this prior to the shutdown. I had to run through the list so fast because there's so many bad things that you could point to prior to the shutdown. We had negative quarter of economic growth prior to the shutdown. We had a shutdown in Trump's first term that was 6 days shorter and didn't have any of these economic effects that they are pretending are just a guarantee now. In reality, the blame Biden train was coming to an end. They knew that, they felt it, and they were hoping that this lie would buy them a bit more time.
What do you want to say about these bumps in certain prices and your efforts to rein in inflation?
Well, the first thing we want to say is that we 100% get it. And one of the ways you can think about it, Maria, is that because of inflation and the 4% increase in mortgage rates for the typical home buyer, the mortgage rate, the monthly payment went from about $1,200 to about $2,500 during the Biden administration. And so if you add up the increase in the price of groceries, the 21% that you mentioned, that means that a typical ordinary family had to spend $20,000, $25,000 more every year just to cover the Biden inflation. And President Trump is closing the gap on that fast.
Okay, so you heard it here first. What he wants to tell people about the rising prices they're definitely experiencing is, well, hey, Joe Biden had high prices. Weren't you guys supposed to fix that? Isn't that like what your entire campaign was about? Haven't you had 10 months with a Republican trifecta? Why did you guys then prioritize rich guy tax cuts that didn't solve the problem? Also, inflation is up from when Trump took office. This is a weaselly little slimy snake lie where it was under 3%, wages were outpacing it for 2 years in a row. It's now over 3% and wages are not outpacing it. To circumvent this harsh reality of the failure of MAGA economic policies that he cannot own up to, that Trump cannot own up to, that none of these clowns can own up to, he's trying to add the totality of Biden's inflation in 4 years, which is just weird, and to say like this is the number of inflation because he knows in most people's mind they see inflation as either a monthly thing or an annual thing. So if he says, well, 21% inflation, people are going to think, holy shit. Right? Like we've had bad things. When in reality, you could look at any president's term, right? And their inflation is going to be in the teens or like up there. Biden obviously had the outliers because of 2021 and 2022 with the global problem with that COVID and the pandemic caused, which is going to lead him to be higher than other presidencies. But if you add any 4-year total together, inflation is necessary to an economy's growth. So it's going to be there, right? And I know it's beating a dead horse. But again, inflation began spiking before Biden's spending that he signed into law went into effect, and he led the strongest global recovery. So please stop with this pathetic line.
What are the odds we see those $2,000 checks go out next year?
Well, never underestimate President Trump, but in a time when we're being thankful for everything, don't forget, Maria, that we sent out $2,000 about checks already to everybody who has overtime or has tip income. And so President Trump wants to help fix the problem, fill the hole that Joe Biden created. And if we have the money, if the money keeps coming in, we're running a surplus right now over the last few months, then I'm sure that he'll be looking into that.
I think it comes down to how Republicans see their midterm long-term chances, if they lose all the gerrymandering battles and cases and such, and they know like it's written in stone, they're going to lose the House, Trump might just get desperate enough to actually do something like this. The problem, of course, like in just being pragmatic, is that the tariffs haven't actually created enough revenue to cover the checks. I think from the tariffs, we've seen like around 200 something billion. And then the problem is we've also probably used that for a lot of other things. Like Trump has said that we've used it for multiple things. So to the extent we've actually drained that 250 billion, I don't know, but to do the checks, you would need like 500 billion. So it's not even there. So we'd be pulling from elsewhere or deficit spending, which makes it a lot less realistic. But like, it does give you another reason to invoke Joe Biden as, we're solving the Biden problem and all of this. So like, yeah, why not, right?